Good morning, Spanish Fork City. Welcome to our special Facebook Live this morning regarding COVID-19 and Spanish Fork City's economic response to COVID-19. I am Scott Aylett. I'm the Public Information Officer for Spanish Fork City. With me today, I have Dave Anderson, who is the Community and Economic Development Director for the city, as well as Nathan Tervort, who is with Rock Canyon Bank, who will be able to answer some questions for us in terms of SBA loans and some of those specific questions that you guys have. We've received some questions over the evening and this morning, but please continue to put those in the comments section here on the Facebook Live. You can also submit those via email at SpanishFork.org/COVID-19. As always, we want to remind you and your family members, your patrons, all of that, to continue to practice those hygiene tips and recommendations from the CDC. Wash your hands and don't cough on things, cough into your arm and whatnot. Continue to follow those recommendations. We as a city are putting out updates daily on our website at SpanishFork.org/COVID-19, so you can get updates there in terms of the impact of the virus on city facilities and services and whatnot. So we're going to just jump right in and get into kind of the nitty-gritty of what we hope to accomplish with this task force. And we love to hear your questions, your concerns. What are the challenges that you face as a local business owner, so that we have a better idea of, maybe some tools that the city and others can try and implement to help mitigate some of those challenges that you're facing. Dave, our Economic Development Director, has been leading a task force that was set up by the city to look at some of these challenges and identify ways to, again, help mitigate some of those. Dave, do you mind taking a minute or two to give just kind of some context about the task force and what we hope to accomplish here?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. First, the city's concern about our local business community, I really believe, is probably at an all-time high. We know that the different things that have been done to try to help flatten the curve relative to the spread of the virus certainly have a significant effect on our local business community. We're very, very interested today. In fact, I would say that we absolutely need to learn as much as we can about how those adjustments to our lives and how we operate our businesses are impacting you as a business owner or a business operator. As we better understand what those impacts are, I think then we will better be able to implement different things at the city level to try to hopefully help keep businesses operating as close as they can to business as usual. Also to help businesses simply weather the storm and to be ready to rebound as quickly as they possibly can from any ill effects that they might have realized during this very unique time that we're going through today. So again, the purpose of this discussion today really is to learn as much as we can from you, with the idea then that we will be able to get with our decision makers at the city level, that's our mayor and city council, to try to determine what resources the city can put into play to help mitigate those ill effects. And I say that with an understanding certainly that particularly at the local government level, we know our options are somewhat limited. We know our resources are somewhat limited. We know that all of us collectively will be relying to varying degrees on the response that's being provided through the federal stimulus. So I think a big part of us making the most that we can of the opportunities that will be available will rely on us learning as much as we can about the other resources that are out there beyond the Spanish Fork city boundaries and the resources that would come into play via other government or agency channels and that type of a thing. To that end, we really appreciate Nathan Tervort from Rock Canyon Bank joining us this morning. I think it's great, and I think it's essential that we have a very, very strong representation on the task force by our local banking community. And I think those folks will be an excellent resource for everyone as we look to move forward as robustly as we can as we move on post-COVID-19 and work to get the economy back up to where it was just a couple of months ago. So With that, Nathan, do you mind taking a few minutes to talk about what you know about where we're at?
Not at all. Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Scott. Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I've been asked, well, let me start off. My name is Nathan Tervort, as it was mentioned. I'm the Senior Vice President and Director of Specialty Banking for Rock Canyon Bank. Specialty banking is kind of the SBA and USDA arm of the bank. My wife and family, we moved here a little over 11 years ago, and we're grateful to be part of the Spanish Fork community. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about some of the federal opportunities that are available for our businesses that are here in Spanish Fork. A little over a week ago, the governor submitted the whole state of Utah as a disaster area. Every county in the state is eligible for SBA economic injury disaster loans. This is it's really the only live opportunity that is available for businesses right now. And it is viable. We've been asking our customers to be signing up for these loans since it went live. I'd like to take just a little bit of time to discuss this. The loans are really there to help you through these times to pay working capital needs, really to pay your building, pay your utilities, pay your employees. And that is 100% administered by the SBA. The application is online. The approvals are with the SBA. The banks are not a part of this program other than just trying to help you to understand it and to be able to know where to go. I know our time is limited today, so I just want to kind of hit the brief general points of this. So first off, I would like to give the web address where you can go, and that web address is disasterloan, that's singular, disasterloan.sba.gov. When you get to that page, there's a big icon that says apply online. And there's information that's there that talks you through every part of applying online. I did also just want to give you a phone number so that if there are questions that you have, this is the correct phone number to call. That phone number is 801-659-2955. Again, 800-659-2955. You'll see things like this is limited to a $2 million loan over 30 years. Vast majority of businesses will not qualify for $2 million nor for the 30-year period of time. Excuse me. Really what I've understood this to be is that they're going to take a look at your last year's net or gross profit, and the loan amount will be equal to 6 months of that gross profit. Some of the things to know, because we have been getting some feedback back to us in regards to the application process. And I wanted to pass that along to you, some of the best practices, if you will, that when you apply for the application, they want your social security number, not the EIN of the business, but it starts with your individual social security number. You cannot submit your application without uploading your most recent complete tax return. So until you've got that ready, and that's not saying you have to have your 19s done, but your most current income tax. So 18s would what that be asking for there. Unless you've got your 19s done, then upload those. Like any other commercial loan, personal information, which may include W-2 information, mortgage payments, car payments, credit card debt, will be required. So have that ready. If you're getting error messages, use that 1-800 number that I just gave you a little while ago to call them and find out. One of the biggest feedbacks we get is because there is so much demand that the website is running slow. So if you can, I would recommend running or doing this after 7 o'clock at night or before 7 o'clock in the morning to get off of peak times. And there will be links to be able to check your application process. So I know I'm running up against the time that they've allowed me to talk about, but I felt like that was very important. You may be hearing a lot about the stimulus package that was approved by the Senate last night, that $2.2 trillion package. Within that, you may hear the words grants, you may hear payroll protection, you may hear a bunch of things. I want to caution that there is nothing live in regards to that yet. It just has the Senate approval. It has not gone to the House, has not been signed by the president yet. And it will take time for that information to disseminate and for that program to be put together. So keep your ear to the ground on that. When it's live, I'm sure the banks will be letting everybody know, but that still may be some time, and they have not given us yet any time frame for when those stimulus packages will go live. But I do want to caution you, this is a $2.2 trillion stimulus package, $350 billion specifically for payroll businesses. We're talking about a lot of money, and there will be a lot of fraudulent and unfortunately, disingenuous people that are out there trying to get their hands on that money. I would say be very vigilant in your due diligence and to work with those that you know. That will be your best opportunity to stay safe during this, because there will be a lot of fraudsters that are out there. I'm trying to cram a lot into a very short period of time. Love to hear any questions anybody might have right now, if there are any.
Hey, Nathan, I think we had some connection issues there at the beginning. Do you mind just kind of backing up and giving, again, kind of a brief introduction to the SBA loan and restating kind of those resources, the website, as well as the phone number?
Oh, sure. So talking specifically about the disaster relief information, the website that can be found for that is Disaster Loan. That's singular, disasterloan.sba.gov. And there will be an application, say apply online, and it'll be a fillable PDF that pops up for people to utilize. The phone number, if there is issues with the application or you receive error messages, is 1-800-659-2955. Again, 1-800-659-2955. Sorry, Scott, how far back did I need to go?
We came in probably just after the beginning of when you started speaking. So if you can kind of give just a brief overview again of what the purpose of the loan is.
So the purpose of the loan, and this is a loan that is administered and that is funded directly through the SBA, not through the banks. And so when I give you those URLs and those phone numbers, those are to the SBA directly for the SBA's Disaster Loan Assistance Program. It's really there to help with working capital for you to be able to continue to make payments on loans, your accounts payable, not to pay off existing debt, but to help keep your business going, payroll reasons, those kinds of things. So that's what that's there for. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where I should start and where I should stop. So,
no, I think that's good, and maybe we'll jump into some of the questions, and that might help answer some of that. So, one question we just got from Shelley: is this specifically for small business owners, or are there restrictions based off of your business size?
That's a good question. Really, if you're less than 500 employees, you're eligible, and I should qualify that by saying you do not need to be an existing SBA borrower for this program for you to be eligible for this program. It is open to all businesses, regardless of whether or not you have a current SBA loan or not.
Okay, but typically fewer than 500 employees, it sounds like.
Correct.
And one question that we got: does this act more like a grant, or is it a loan that's got, interest and some of those other loan components associated with it?
Yeah, so this one has a fixed interest rate at 3.75% to be paid back over a period of time that the SBA will deem. There's not any real guidelines as to what they're saying or how they're adjusting that. I would guess it's probably in the neighborhoods typically of 7 to 10 years. This is not a grant program. When people are hearing about the grants, they're talking about that program last night that was approved by the Senate, but not yet turned into law. That one's more of a, if you use that money towards your payroll and you don't lay people off, then that money will be forgiven over time. But there's not a whole lot of detail associated with that yet, nor has it been signed into law. So as people, it gets a little bit confusing sometimes when we talk about these different programs. But the grant program is not live yet. We've seen what the approved Senate package is, but like I mentioned before, until it gets fully approved by the House, the President, the program gets written up, and so that we know how to administer that program, there's nothing quite live yet for that grant program that people are talking about.
Is there a different interest rate for nonprofit organizations, or is it still that 3.75?
Yeah, the nonprofits are at 2.75, so they're a full point less for nonprofits. Okay. So appreciate you bringing that up. Nonprofits are eligible for this. They're not every nonprofit is, and I don't have the ability to know which one is or which one isn't. So once again, I would refer you back to that 1-800 number.
Okay. That I gave earlier. Are there, I think for some business owners, it might be kind of daunting reaching out to, the SBA organization, calling a number that's not necessarily local. Are there local resources that they can take advantage of that can maybe help you through the process of applying for an SBA loan?
Yeah, this one is a little bit more streamlined than a typical SBA loan is because of what it's used for. So, if you can get that information together, it's not too bad. But I would say if you do have loans with the current bank, I would call your bank and have them, because I think some of the information they're going to want to know is, okay, what's your maturity date on this loan, or what's your interest rate on this loan, and perhaps your bank can help you walk you through that information. But we do not have a back office look to the application process to be able to help them through that, if that makes sense.
What if you're a sole proprietor? You don't have any employees. Do you still qualify?
My understanding is yes. If there's a business interest that's going forward, that it would be available.
Okay. And then is there a minimum loan amount that you would have to apply for?
Not that I've seen. And even in the application process, what I'm understanding is they're not asking for what the loan amount is. They'll get back to you and say what you qualify for.
Okay. And again, to restate those resources, you said it was 1-800-659-2955 or disasterloan.sba.gov.
Correct. And that other help information can be found at that same URL that you just gave.
And again, to reiterate, this is mostly for your working capital, right? To keep your business operating and not to meet other loan obligations that you already have.
That's correct. From the disaster standpoint, it's really there to help through the disaster period of time. It's not really to be used to purchase hard assets, pay off the existing debt, those kinds of things. It's really to kind of help keep the doors open, keep the lights on.
Okay. Perfect. Well, this sounds like it's a great resource, not only for the for-profit organizations, but even for nonprofits in our community who are having some difficulties and challenges right now as we go through this disaster period. Thank you, Nathan, for your time. We really appreciate it. Let me just see if there are any other questions that we have come through.
While you're looking at that, maybe I should mention that this is one of those programs where there's a certain amount of money, and when it's used, it's gone. I believe time is of the essence. If you're thinking about it, I'd get after it as soon as you can.
Okay. How do they, maybe this be the last question, how do they determine the amounts that you would qualify for?
What I'm understanding is they took a look at your financials, and they'll go up to 6 months of your gross. I think it's your gross profit. I haven't got that feedback back yet. That's what I'm hearing. So I can't for sure say that's the case, but that's really what I'm hearing is what it's going to be.
Okay. Awesome. Well, again, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could just mention this, and Nathan, I'd love for you to weigh in on just the nature of this fast rate of change relative to what we're learning about the federal stimulus, how that might work for different folks. It seems to me like there's probably going to be a good opportunity over the course of the next few days, maybe into the middle of next week, to get a better grasp of exactly what those opportunities are, what the options are, how people could take advantage of those. We certainly appreciate tremendously, Nathan, you giving us the insight that you have right now this morning. I mentioned as well that Brock Bench with Alta Bank and Glenn Roach with Central Bank are also a part of the task force. And it seems to me like there might be some value in, maybe having another conversation in the upcoming days. Again, relying on our local experts relative to what these opportunities would be for local businesses to share what we know, maybe in a few days that we might not know today.
Sure, happy to help wherever I can.
Thank you.
Great. Well, again, thank you, Nathan. We understand you have some other obligations this morning, so feel free to leave or to go to those when needed. But again, thank you so much. We've had a flood of questions come in, and I think this will be a really good resource for some of our businesses and organizations in our community. So thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks.
And as a follow-up, it looks like the Chamber has put this information as well on their website. The Chamber's website is SpanishForkChamber.com. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but the city's also working on a web page that will have some resources available there. So look forward to that, and we'll have more information coming out later about that web page. So Dave, we just talked a lot about kind of the SBA aspect, those disaster loans. Maybe what are some other tools that, as you've interacted with the task force, which is made up of Chamber members and other business owners in the community, maybe what are some other tools that we've identified and are contemplating at this time?
We've really zeroed in on a couple of things that I think we appreciate because they could provide fairly immediate relief for the local business community. So we're exploring, for example, the prospect of simply helping people with utility bills. And that assistance could come in a number of different ways. For example, just something as for me, it's really simple, as working with local businesses to maybe forego an immediate payment to work on some kind of a payment plan or different things like that to provide some time relief from the need to pay those bills. That relative to how we as the city interact with local businesses month to month probably has the most significant financial impact for them. We've talked as well about trying to help from a workforce perspective, perhaps working with the Chamber of Commerce and some of the employers out there that actually right now are hiring, so that potentially we could create opportunities where businesses that maybe have had a reduction in force but still want to keep their employees somehow connected and active, maybe could have those employees, I guess the best way I could describe it is sort of loaned to another business that's looking for temporary help that is directly related to demand created by our efforts to flatten the curve, and those types of things. That would be, I think, a fairly unique approach, but that's something that we're discussing as well. The idea of encouraging the patronage of businesses that have had their operations curtailed. It's really, for me, about hospitality and food, restaurants. Clearly, they seem to be dealing with the most significant maybe changes in how they're able to operate, doing different things, maybe with gift cards, encouraging residents to support those businesses by making those purchases, maybe the city helping to orchestrate something from that perspective by way of a program, just to, again, simply encourage people to patronize those local businesses so that they can weather this time as hopefully easily as possible. Also, we're coordinating with the folks that do some things for Utah County, like what maybe some of our business operators have seen done in Ogden City and Salt Lake City, where some immediate loan funds have been made available through community development block grant monies. Spanish Fork City is not large enough to receive those monies directly, but we're talking to the folks that administer those funds to us essentially from the federal government. There are $480,000 available right now that they're looking to somehow put into an immediate loan program. If that were structured, for example, like Salt Lake City's program, that would come in the form of a loan of up to $10,000 very, very low interest loan, very favorable repayment options, with the idea that those funds would be provided in a matter of days to help local businesses keep people on payroll, to keep the doors open, and do different things like that, just again, to deal with the effects of our effort to flatten the curve. And quite possibly through the federal stimulus, there would be a significant influx of money to supplement that $480,000, which in all candor, we're talking in that case about all of the communities in Utah County except for Lehigh, Orem, and Provo. So $480,000 probably is not going to go a long ways, but the hope is that that's going to be significantly increased as part of the federal stimulus. And that's something we will keep a very, very close eye on. Like I mentioned with Nathan, I think we'll know a lot more about that particular opportunity really probably as early as Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. So I would suggest that anybody that thinks that that might be helpful, stay tuned. We'll certainly distribute information out real time as soon as we get it. But those are some of the things that we've talked about. I think there's some of the most promising ways that as a city organization, we might be able to provide some assistance.
So in terms of next steps, we've identified some of these ideas that we're considering at the city level and working with some of our partners. But what is it that we need from, say, the business owners, right? A lot of this will be dependent on what the actual challenges that they're facing, right? And so we've talked about a survey. Obviously, we're doing this Facebook Live. What are some other things that we're trying to do to solicit some input and feedback from our business owners so that we know how best to help you?
There's this medium right here, and there's the survey. And in addition to that, my email address is d.anderson, Anderson spelled with an O, at SpanishFork.org. I'd love to hear from anybody that has any ideas or suggestions, or that maybe just wants to share something about a particular issue that they're dealing with, a particular concern that they have. We need information. I think we clearly are operating on some assumptions that the current situation probably is disrupting payroll. It's probably impacting businesses' abilities to retain employees and to keep them active and useful. We suspect that there is a significant decrease in revenue for a number of our businesses, and various things like that. We think there's probably an opportunity as well, like I mentioned, to try to encourage increased patronage to businesses and that type of a thing. But we certainly want to hear from the community at large about how they're being impacted. And if anyone has suggestions, I think this is one of those absolute situations where even though we might not be able to do everything, and there may be things that we absolutely don't have the capacity to do, there's not a bad idea. So I think it's imperative that we work to be as creative as we can to try to have the biggest effect that we can.
So one thing that we should have out later today is a survey that we've prepared by looking at what some other communities have done, and to get a better feel for what you're experiencing. And so look to see that post later today. We'll send that out to businesses for whom we have contact information. But your feedback will be crucial as we go over, the next few days, and really time is of the essence. And so the faster that you can respond to the survey that we'll send out, the better. Our hope, Dave, as I understand, is to review that survey data beginning on Monday. So we would anticipate and hope that survey respondents could do that by the end of the weekend, so that we can evaluate and have some, initial recommendations or thoughts for the city council. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I would go as far as almost to beg that people respond very promptly to that survey. We've designed it so that it should take less than 5 minutes to complete. And with the understanding that there is an extreme sense of urgency to us putting different things into play to try to have a positive impact, we need that feedback ASAP.
Great. So we'll have that sent out today. It will be available on our website at SpanishFork.org/COVID-19. And again, we'll email that out to those businesses for whom we have contact information. A couple of questions, Dave, before we wrap up here, and these are maybe questions that we may not have answers for right now, but give us kind of an idea for what some people are facing. But One mentions that, food service businesses certainly are taking a hit, but some other service industries like salons, clientele are staying home. And so that's not necessarily a curbside service that you can order and pick up, but certainly if we can try and consider those types of businesses, and I'm certain that we have. Let's see some other questions that we have. Relief on lease payments for with property owners. There's talk of deferring mortgage payments for residents. Is there any programs out there for deferred lease payments for businesses? Let's see if we have any other comments and questions coming in. Let me just check our other feed really quick. Anyway, again, please continue to comment in the comment section, or you can send us an email at SpanishFork.org/COVID-19. We have a comment form there as well. And please take the survey. We'll get that out today. And I like Dave's way of putting it, almost begging you to take that as quickly as possible so that we can get your feedback and come up with some recommendations promptly. And again, Jesse asked, will there be a link for businesses to take the survey? Again, that will be on the city's website at SpanishFork.org/COVID-19. Dave, any other thoughts or comments about kind of where we go from here, what businesses could expect here in the next week or so?
I think a lot of it's going to be dependent on what we hear via the survey, and maybe through any other questions or information that we're able to solicit from this conversation right now. In terms of next steps, we do plan on having some pretty in-depth conversations with our decision makers. That's the mayor and city council in upcoming days. I would hope that, I'm speculating here a little bit, but that by the middle of next week, we're able to publish some things that would describe what the city's doing. That'll probably come with some kind of invitation for people to help as we look to the broader community to help have as big of an impact as we can. And I'll mention this as well, that we certainly, as Spanish Fork City, don't necessarily believe that we have all the answers. Other communities are doing a great job as well. I think of really kind of at the spur of the moment, developing some best practice approaches to dealing with the economic side of COVID-19. We continue to look to those to pick and choose what might be best for us to employ in Spanish Fork. So for example, the question that was raised about deferring lease payments and that type of a thing, while we may not play a direct role in being able to work directly with a landlord and a tenant on those types of arrangements, we certainly can do some research relative to how other communities are working with their property owners and different things like that, maybe to try to come to the most favorable way for those relationships to continue, so that, again, everybody comes out of this in as positive a way as possible.
Great. Well, again, thank you. We've had a number of, over 100 businesses or individuals logged in today watching our Facebook Live, so we appreciate you tuning in. Again, we'll have that survey up later today at SpanishFork.org/COVID-19. If you have any questions, you can submit a question or a comment on that page. You can also email Dave directly at danderson, that's SON, at SpanishFork.org. You can also email me. My last name is a little more difficult to remember, but my email is saylett, AYLETT, at SpanishFork.org, and we'd love to answer any questions that you guys have pertaining to the economic response here in Spanish Fork City relative to COVID-19, and any other questions that you might have regarding the city's response, the virus, and how we're working together as a community to, as Dave mentioned, flatten the curve and reduce the overall spread and impact of this virus on our community, on families, on our businesses, and on one another. So again, thank you so much for tuning in today. Look forward to that survey coming out this afternoon, or even earlier than that, but we'll get that out as quickly as we can, and ask and implore you to fill that survey out as quickly as possible so we can implement your feedback as we come up with recommendations for the mayor and city council. So again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. If you have other questions about the SBA loan and got here maybe a little bit late, go back to the beginning of the video, we had Nathan Tervort from Rock Canyon Bank answering some of those questions and giving you some direction on how to apply for funding through that source. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you, Dave, for being here. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to getting your feedback and implementing it as best we can. So thank you again.